pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take the roll, please.
Trustee Spurling. Here. Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
Trustee Lee.
Here.
Trustee Youngerman. Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
And Trustee Bond.
Here.
Okay, we take this time every meeting for public comments. You have a couple minutes to voice any kind of opinion on any item. So if somebody would like to come do that now, just sign your name at the podium up there. And I knew Thomas would.
Good evening, members of the Village Board. My name's Tom Myers. I'm the chief of the Montgomery Fire Department. I know the TIF district rebate is not on the actual agenda this evening, but if you do discuss it, I'd like to be part of that discussion. That's all I have.
Thank you. That was record time. We appreciate that. Ladies, anybody else want to speak? No? We'll wait till Thomas sits down. The MEDC update, which is on the agenda, is going to be next week.
We're going to do it at our meeting on the 28th.
Okay? And now the
The MEDC update that's on, it's going to be moved to August 28th.
The other item is the proclamation for National Night Out. As you can see, we're all wearing our National Night Out shirts. And it's for as the proclamation reads, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it has Matt's name on it and it's long. But our annual night out is August 1st. And we combine with the police departments and the fire departments of all 5 fire districts and all 1 police department. And it'll be August 1st, and we'll roll around through the town, and people can come out and talk to us, voice their opinions. Tom, if you want to be somewhere on that night and talk to us, I'm going to be with Aurora Township Fire Department, so I can stay away from you, but other than that, okay. All right, so if somebody would like to make a
So moved.
motion.
Second.
Roll.
Trustee Spurling. Yes. Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
And Trustee Bond.
Yes.
I always have a fun time talking to the residents during that time. All right, consent agenda. Minutes of the Village Board meeting of July 10th. Building permit report of June 2017. Accounts payable through July 20th, 2017 in the amount of $726,513.63. Article D, E,
All the way to I.
F, G, H, and I. We're going to hold for another meeting.
There's Trustee Youngerman called today and asked if the board would table those items until a meeting that he was at. So I think you guys would then have to, does somebody here need to make a motion to
C through I.
remove those in tables?
C through I.
D through I?
D through I?
Yeah.
Okay. Make a motion to table items D through I from the consent agenda to a future meeting.
Second. Roll.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Present.
Trustee Spurling. Yes. Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
And Trustee Lee.
Yes. Okay, we're down to, on the consent agenda, J, ordinance 1775, Aurora University petition for disconnection, and K, cancellation of village board meeting of August 14th, right after the fest, when none of us are in great shape. I'll take a motion on that too, on all the consent agenda.
Motion to approve revised consent agenda.
Second.
Roll.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling. Yes. Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
And Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And thank you for canceling that meeting after the fest.
Items for separate agenda, pavement management study update of 217. Are we going with Pete?
So recall that at the start of each year, we review the pavement management report, and then we modify it based on work completed and work remaining, and then we bring back the program modifications to you for approval. So what we have now is there's 3 years remaining on our current study format. So we adopted a 5-year plan. We've done 2 of those years. So what we're asking for this evening will be concurrence on basically the program for next year is probably what we want to focus on, but we did program out the next 3 years, so including next year's. And I'll draw your attention to a couple of things. There's a individual list of all the streets that are included in the packet for year 2018, which would be FY 2019. And then there's a similar list for 2019 FY 20 and 2020 FY 21. And you'll notice we put in yellow any streets that have been added from the original proposal. So we try to add streets when we can, but our first goal is to complete every street that was on the original list. For next year, we haven't added anything to the program, but we have increased our spending, proposed spending on alternative pavement management methods such as any kind of like the surfacing that we talked about, the sealers, or use of more crack sealing, things like that. So that had normally been at $50,000. We increased that to $100,000. We've also going to be doing some storm sewer work as part of the street program to improve the drainage of the streets. We deem that to be necessary in areas where we didn't have storm sewer. A lot of that will be in Parkview Estates, where we've got some pretty areas that drain fairly poorly, and we need to be able to drain the streets as well. So that's been added in. Also, if you notice on the list, most of the resurfacing is, most of the streets will just be milled and overlay, but we are doing some major reconstruction on Rochester, which is an industrial road, and on Cornell, which is an industrial road. So you'll just notice that there's more money allocated for those 2 streets, mainly because of the truck traffic that they handle. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the proposed program for next year, or any of the following years, or any other questions you might have on the pavement management plan. It's within budget. It's within what we had originally budgeted, so we're staying true to the budget. And again, just doing more detailed surveys to determine what's needed every year. And you may recall we also went out and did some pavement cores in advance of this so that we could do a better job in estimating. And hence, that's the reason why we're spending more money on Cornell and Rochester, because we needed to do more work on those streets to maintain the pavement integrity.
I have a question related to this. Our ordinance for commercial vehicle parking on the streets, because I know that we have a few out by me that are consistently draining stuff onto our roadways, and one of those is in this, one of those streets, 2 of them are actually in this project. So I'd like to figure out what we can do to review that, because I know it's a little ambiguous right now. It goes by weight. And I know I've talked to the mayor previously about it, that, you know, in my subdivision, the HOA says you can't have a commercial vehicle in your driveway. But if you park it on the street, it's not our problem. Well, they're hurting everybody. Because if it can't go in your driveway because your HOA won't let you, and it can't fit in your garage, it probably doesn't belong on our village street, especially when they're leaking. But from what I understand, our current ordinance doesn't have enough teeth in it for us to enforce that. So I'd like to see us look at that before we continue. Since we're escalating the roads program, we're now going to be putting good pavement down and having these vehicles leaking on top of them. So I'd like to figure out what we can do as a board to.
Sure, and that's something we can definitely take a look at.
Okay.
And that's something to bring up to the audience too, is we get about $3 million a year now on the extra tax that we have passed, that 1% for roads. And I think that's the biggest, that not all the Montgomery residents are paying. It's the people that do shopping in Montgomery. And that has really been a great incentive for us to improve our streets. All right. Do we need a motion on that?
We do, because
Okay.
the next step will be that we'll bring back a PSA for the actual engineering. We'd like to start that this summer so that we can again bid it early in February, so we can get our, our best bidding out the door, so.
Which, we did this year. Thank you guys both for all of that. I'd like to make a motion to approve item A, pavement management study report update 2017.
Second. Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
And Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now we go to Todd, two-way radio system update purchase.
Thank you. At the board meeting on July 10th, I sought your approval for the acquisition and installation of a two-way radio system for efficient communication throughout Public Works. After some discussion, you may recall the item was tabled with a couple of questions. Tonight, I'm going to report back to you on those questions. The first question was regarding the FCC license. I had previously reported that the license had expired. Unbeknownst to me, the police chief had renewed the license prior to the September 12th, 2015 expiration date. Therefore, the license previously held for the Public Works radios remains active until 2025. There will, however, be a cost to amend that license for the use with a repeater, or for use with a repeater, which it was not previously designed to include. The second question was related to the historical practice of the police department being able to communicate with Public Works on this frequency. While the ability is there, if we rebuild our system using analog equipment that would be compatible with the police department equipment, after some discussion with the chief and deputy chief, I learned that the frequency would no longer be monitored since in-house dispatch that was used at the time to monitor that channel is no longer available. The external dispatch will not be monitoring that. So we collectively decided that it would be better to rebuild a stronger Public Works frequency using digital network and continue to communicate between the two departments using cell phone technology, which is already available to us. So therefore, the vendor has quoted a build-from-scratch system, which is in front of you. However, there are opportunities to reuse some of the equipment remaining from the older system as we get into that installation, for which the vendor will only obviously charge us for the things that we actually need. The Concept Wireless proposal of $31,649.30 is, I'm asking for your approval of that tonight. However, the vendor and I remain confident we'll be able to trim costs from that further as we move forward. It's hard to identify those costs at this time because it will evolve as they start to dig into it further. They haven't quite spent that magnitude of time on it yet. This item is currently $7,100 under budget. If there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain those now.
I just wanted to thank you for doing that further research, and based on the information that you gave us, it looks like you've been looking at this for quite some time. So I do appreciate how thorough you've been, and you're presenting us with, I think, a very good proposal that's well under budget, so thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
I noticed that the $1,575 for the FCC license is still in here, so that's one of those trimmed. I know it's going to cost money to update it.
He wasn't sure. It's not something that they do regularly. They often seek a new license, but amending a license isn't something that they do regularly. So he wasn't sure as to a cost in order to revise. I told him just leave it, and we'll trim those costs as we can moving forward.
What's the timeline for installation?
Well, the FCC license being in place will expedite some things by probably 8 weeks. My goal is to have everything in and operational before the snow flies. We may be able to even beat that a bit now that we don't have to get an FCC license approved. So I don't know if the amending will take equally as long with FCC or not.
Okay,
So
Thank you.
hopefully before the snow flies, to answer your question.
thank you.
Okay,
So if I can get a motion.
get a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second?
Take the roll.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Okay, it passed. Thank you for getting the price below budget. Next one is Resolution 17005, related to elected officials' participation in IMRF. And this is from the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund Board of Trustees for a resolution requiring all units of government participate, reaffirming their position, including the clerk, if they meet a 600-hour annual standard. Any discussion on that? I guess they have had this before. I do not remember that in my 20 years.
Right.
60
This is really a housekeeping item for us. The board has previously approved elected officials to participate in IMRF. Every once in a while, IMRF just asks us to update the resolution, and that's what we're doing here, so.
So if somebody would make that motion to update it,
So moved.
Second?
take the roll.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Heinz? Trustee Lee?
Yep.
And Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
The next is the Verizon cell tower lease agreement for 435 Wabansia Avenue.
I'm sure
And who's doing this?
Laura's going to discuss it.
Sure. Yep, this is a pretty straightforward item. It's just a cell tower lease agreement for the location specified in the packet on Wabansia Avenue. And the major terms are outlined in the cover sheet, which is the rental term of $3,100, as well as the renewal period. It's 5-year with an up to 4 5-year extensions. Otherwise, most of it is just the particulars for the site and the engineering and everything else. And either Engineer Wallers or myself can answer any specific questions that you may have.
That's what I was looking at, that there really wasn't terms of the lease in the packet. It was more the specs for the construction of it and all of that. I do have a question, though. I'm familiar with having these types of utilities. I used to manage high-rise buildings. So my question is, do we have, if their payment is in default, do we have some sort of I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Do we have a way to say something along the lines of where they couldn't have access if they hadn't paid?
What typically happens, I don't recall the exact with this lease, but it's usually a notice and cure period where if there's some sort of breach, if they haven't paid it or anything else that they've done in violation, the village would send a notice requesting that they cure it. If they don't cure it within the specified time frame, which is usually between 2 weeks and 30 days, then the village would either be able to terminate the lease or take other actions, depending upon which type of breach it was or what specifically happened.
If they need access for some type of maintenance, or perhaps there's some kind of issue where they have to go in and repair something, and let's say it's during that cure time and we don't have a payment, do we still have to allow them, or can we demand payment?
We have to allow them to try to be able to cure whatever the defect was. So we can't prevent them from curing whatever was problematic, but I'd have to double check on actually cutting off access to the site.
Thank you.
Pete, is this on our water tower?
No, it's a separate standalone tower.
Do we have some on the water tower now? Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Just,
Trying to prevent having too many on the tower, it starts to make it more difficult to do maintenance on the tower. And there's a point where the load of those antennas starts to be an issue for the tower as well. So we think it's a better solution. The village still gets the revenue, but we don't have the hassle of trying to work around them when we have to repaint the tower.
is there a deal if Verizon gets bought out by somebody else? Do they still?
They're allowed to assign, if Verizon gets bought out, a direct subsidiary or anyone that actually purchases them would be privy to this agreement, but if they actually want to sell it to somebody else, they'd have to get prior approval.
Okay. Very good. Lease is for 5 years with renewals. So I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second?
I'm very excited about this, by the way. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I did.
Yep, Doug.
Oh,
Somebody over there did it.
take the roll.
The north side did it.
Trustee Bond,
Yes.
Trustee Spurling,
Yes.
Trustee Heinz, Trustee Lee,
Yes.
and Trustee Marisak.
Yes, ma'am.
Last thing, E, the railroad quiet zone update. Is Pete?
Thank you. So I know it seems like it's been a long time since we initiated the quiet zone application, but there's been slow, steady progress, but it's taken a while. There's been a number of things that have happened relative to the new crossing and getting that into the system, et cetera. But anyway, tonight we're at a point where we need direction from the board. When we initiated the quiet zone, there was some question as to whether or not it was going to be affordable because we didn't know what we were going to run into when we started looking at it. We're to the point now where we've gone through and made the initial calculations, and it does appear that we can meet enough of the standard safety measures to qualify for a quiet zone, which would include both the Watkins and the Webster intersector, Webster crossing. So what we need, and if that, we still have to finalize the application and go through it, but the preliminary determination is that we would be able to get the quiet zone. One of the outstanding issues that we're still waiting to resolve is what's called the continuous warning system for the siding track. So on the mainline tracks, if you can think about this, when you have a standard freight train coming through, you know, the crossing guards go down at a certain time based on the distance from when those freight trains, you know, initiate that, so they close, right? If there's a high-speed train, the system takes that into account so that there's a similar amount of warning time so that you have enough time to get people across the tracks and all that before the gates drop. So that system is in place for the two main lines. Well, the siding doesn't have that system because it's more or less for just freight siding and deliveries and things, so you don't have high-speed rail on the siding. Nevertheless, we have to get an exemption for that or a variance for that. In order to process that, we need some information from the Burlington Northern to go through that. So we're still in the process of doing that. But the initial indications that we've gotten from the Federal Rail Administration and the ICC is that we'll be granted that variance or that exemption. So we think we can move forward. So what will be required then to get a quiet zone will be to install basically a non-mountable median or basically a curb median, and there's a drawing in your packet. I don't know, Jeff, you probably don't have capability for that. So it's basically a 60-foot median on the west side, you know, closest to Route 31, and then a 60-foot non-traversable median on the east side of the track. And it interferes a little bit with entrances, but it doesn't preclude entrance. So community development has spoken to both the affected folks, which would be Performance Foods and Colonial Remodeling. They're both okay with it. They can still get in. The radius is diminished a little bit, but I think they're more in favor of having quiet than having a little bit of inconvenience for the access. So what we would propose then would be to complete the rest of the work that we need to do to make the official application. And then we'd like to move forward then with the installation of the safety measures, which we would do as part of the next year's road program. And that's estimated to cost about $33,000. So we would package it all together. Then once it's constructed, then we would finally make the final application and get our quiet zone. So that's the plan if you want to move forward. So the cost remaining is approximately $15,000 to finish the study, which was budgeted and which was approved in 2015, but it was rebudgeted. And then we're estimating $33,000 for the design and construction of the non-traversable curb median. And then again, that would be included in next year's IRP program. So if you want to move forward, we'll need a motion to do both things, to finish the study and to design and construct the safety measures.
And we're currently about $6,100 in, because we approved phase one
Yes.
at $6,100 because we didn't know what the costs were gonna
We
be.
didn't want to proceed with the rest until, because had there not been the speed monitoring system in place, that probably would have been a bridge too far, because we would have had to pay to put that in for the main line, you know.
The reason, going back in history, to refresh me as to what the reason for the quiet zone, somebody requested, a business owner, resident, what's driving the quiet zone?
We had, I think, from time to time, we've gotten.
Yeah, I was thinking some residents had contacted the village and some trustees complaining about the sound, and the board had directed us to look into what it would take for a quiet zone.
And we've had some interest as time has gone on as to the status of the quiet zone and the, you know, where we're at in the process. So there's been interest. I can't tell you all the folks that have called in.
And the $48,000 does not include if we don't get the exemption and we need to put in that.
I don't think we'd come
System.
back to you if there was something that didn't qualify as it's laid out here, we'd come back and ask for direction. We're pretty confident that we're going to be able to move forward with what's been outlined. But if, for example, that exemption wasn't granted, yes, we would have to come back, because I don't think we'd want to move forward until we had further direction, because we'd exceed the budget at that point.
But if we start to move forward, we're into phase two, so we're into more spend.
Yes.
We're not limited back to the 6,100.
No,
We're in the extra 3,400 or 3,300 that it is.
Yeah, there's two phases.
Phase B.
Is $3,264, and then phase C was $8,208. And then there's some allowance in there for traffic counts as well.
And again, I know that we've discussed at length the future of Alcott Road and wanting to put in bike path connectivity. That would be impacting on this. We would have to get in separate gates and separate crossings because that would become a pedestrian crossing, which it's currently not. So that would, our long-term goal is to get bike path connectivity down to the downtown area. So that would impact this quiet zone. We would have to,
Once the quiet zone's granted, then we have a quiet zone. If we want to add some pedestrian features to the intersection, that would be considered separately through the railroad. We have to get pricing on, you know, that.
and it would have to be quiet zone compliant is my point. Because
Yeah.
I know that there's limitations because you need to keep the pedestrians off the,
Right. We would need a crosswalk.
okay.
The constant warning time waiver costs us nothing? That,
Well, it's part of the study. That's what we have to determine.
get away
We
with it.
should grant it, but we're not, you know, until they do, you don't know for sure. Because it's a siding track, it's not critical, is the position we're taking. And at the initial meetings, that was the concurrence we got from, like I say, the FRA and ICC and the BNSF.
In the initial meetings years ago, they mentioned that because there's two crossings, that they still blow the whistle at certain ones, and all it's gonna stop is them blowing between the two. This is gonna stop them completely?
So,
That's,
right, they won't blow on a routine, going through the village on a routine matter, they won't blow the whistle once the quiet zone is established for the two intersections. If they see anything pedestrian, something on the track, they're still authorized to sound the horn. So they're not prevented from sounding their horn. It's just as a routine, when they go through, it's a routine. They start the horn at a certain point
Right.
and hold it through.
then Tom waves at them, and then they blow the horn again, and
But it's up to, and it still gives the engineers some discretion if they feel that there's a safety concern.
Did we have a motion on the floor?
Not yet.
Can I make one? This is good for downtown. I think it will serve our residents well and our businesses.
What's the total cost on this?
Approximately 48,000.
Okay. Is there a second, ma'am?
Did you make, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion. I will second it.
Motion to approve continuing the study.
I will second.
Thank you. Roll.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And Trustee Marisak.
No.
All right, items for discussion. Anybody have anything?
I'm sorry, did we have to do a second motion on that one?
I don't know if it was clear enough, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it was intended to be two things, finish the study and then authorize us to move forward with design and construction of the improvement. If we're gonna actually achieve the quiet zone, we'll have to do that, because we won't get it until we install those improvements.
So Stan, you want to revise yours to,
Amend yours to
Amend both,
include that.
if agreeable, sure. Or we'll do it separately.
Willing
What are we
to,
doing?
are you willing to, he's willing to amend his motion to include the construction, then are you willing to second
I'm
that?
willing to second that, yes.
And I'm assuming everybody who's in favor is still in favor and opposed still opposed.
roll?
Call the roll. Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And Trustee Marisak.
No.
Now, items for discussion?
I do have one item.
I figured that.
That's new or unfinished business.
I'm sorry, yes, new or unfinished. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
Items for discussion, nothing, huh?
Just, I'd like to just follow up on the construction part, or the parking on the streets for the commercial vehicles, just so that we can get that in the record.
Our lawyer will hop on that. And items for discussion, I did take my car through the car wash today, since I was up in Wisconsin, it was dirty, and it
Windows
worked perfect with all the windows up. It did a great job. All right, new and unfinished
Live and
business.
learn. Yes, I have one item. The Rotary Club touched up the Montgomery in Motion street painting out here in front. I'd like to thank Pete Wallers. He is one of our Rotarians, and he was in charge of that project. They did a fine job. I also want to point out that that is a Rotary project, funded by Rotary. There are no taxpayer dollars involved in this. Thank you.
Very good. Any other new or unfinished business? Stan?
Montgomery's Got Talent completed its audition trials for taking the main stage on Saturday at noon. Once again, we had more acts than we could accommodate with our time slot, and I think the acts that we've chosen will put on a very entertaining and good show. So looks like another successful year.
And our signs are up for Montgomery Fest, and we may have to have a boat in the park here, but Todd already has caught fish in there, 18 to 20-inch carp, which could have set a record there if you'd have kept it, but we hope that dries up. Any other? Stan did have the beautification.
Yes, I think we may have canceled that meeting, or shall we proceed with it? August 9th? That's not right, anyway. August 9th wouldn't be the date. It'd be the third, if we were to meet, it would be the third Wednesday in the month, the second Wednesday in the month, which would be, better not be August 9th.
15th.
It is August 9th.
16.
I take it back.
Oh, the second.
Yep, I was in the wrong month. So if it's announced, we'll proceed.
Okay. And you did have your 24 winners or 34
Yeah,
winners?
we were trying to protect that time to get ready for Montgomery Fest, but
Okay. Future meetings, any other new or unfinished business? Anything? Pete? No? Okay, future meetings, Plan Commission meeting is canceled for Thursday, August 3rd. Beautification Committee is scheduled right now for Wednesday, August 9th. Village Boardman meeting is canceled for August 14th. And the next village board meeting will be Monday, August 28th at 7. Historic preservation meeting will be Monday, the 21st. And the committee of the whole, pardon? Okay. Committee of the whole will be Tuesday, August 22nd at 7. And intergovernmental will be before the village board meeting, the 28th of Monday at 6. There's no executive meeting, so take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Roll.
Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
And Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight, especially you, Thomas.